successful people in the world, the most popular influencers and whatever, I guarantee that you can boil their message down to these three things. So knowing what you want, the 3 steps to success, I call it, knowing what you want, getting real with where you are right now. So where are you? And then number 3 is creating the plan to bridge that gap. So exactly like a life GPS, where do you want to go? Where are you? How do we get there? Is how I kind of boil down what vision planning is. And that's why I say like all over my platform for life and business, because people kind of, I still think, categorize them separately, but for me, it's one. And I'm sure for you guys, it's one entity. And I know for, I'm going to say 9.9 out of 10 female business owners, it's one, and whatever, any single male parents as well. But you have to really get clear on what is important to you and what you want in every area of your life.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to episode 37 of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. Today we'll be discussing creating your ideal life through vision planning. And our guest today is Kyley Paul. Kylie currently runs 3 businesses that she has started from scratch and does all of this as a single mom. Kylie, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. And can I first say, I don't know if anyone said this to you guys yet, but a major congratulations for not only surviving, but thriving during COVID and school lockdowns with 4 kids. I have no clue how you two did it and continue to not only keep your sanity, stay together, keep working, props to you guys. So
thanks so much. I know it's funny because I'm off on Fridays and this is my first Friday off with none of my kids since pretty much April. So I'm quite excited. And we made it. I don't know how, but we did.
Guys, literally, I barely survived with 2 kids. I have no clue. I would have just laid on the ground and given up with 4, I think. That would have been my strategy.
There were some times, and we also just finished renovations. So there were definitely times of tears and all that stuff, not gonna lie, but no, for the most part, we did good. We made it.
Major celebrations are in order if you haven't done that already.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, well, let's start off our conversation by introducing you to everybody. So who is Kyley Paul?
Thank you. Tough question to start. I think I'm going to kind of answer it with my mission. So, I've gotten really clear on my mission and what most drives me, and it's to mentor and motivate others through sharing my experience and empowering others to find what drives them and get really clear on their own visions and then create a plan to start executing it and living their ideal lives. And I also have a focus on youth empowerment. That's always been important to me, even all growing up. I've always kind of, whatever age I was at, I mentored younger than me and was involved and coached and did different things. And I'm still doing that. I still teach in high schools and do guest speaking in high schools and elementary schools and universities, and kind of breaking and trying to eradicate the learned helplessness in our society is tagged along definitely into my mission as well.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about your career and how you've gotten to where you are today. So can you walk us through that journey?
Oh boy, how long is this podcast? Well, I'll give you the bullet point version. How about that? So sure. I have academically, I have a science background. I have a biology degree and pharmaceutical regulatory affairs graduate degree. I began my professional career at Jameson Vitamins, and I was their lead domestic regulatory on all their products and all the third-party manufacturing products. So pretty rare and specific expertise. And I was very grateful to have that experience. And then after, during my first maternity leave in 2014, the company was bought out. There was an acquisition. And I essentially came back after my first maternity leave to a completely different company and trying to navigate being a new mom and a professional, and the balance and boundaries of that was extremely difficult under the new management. And I asked for certain kind of flexibilities, and it wasn't there. And at the same time, I was asked by a former executive to start my own trade consulting company, who had moved on and was with other companies at the time, because my specific professional expertise was so rare that he trusted me to do it. And I mean, I was doing some personal development at the time as well, and knew I wasn't being challenged in the way that I could be and growing in the direction that I wanted to be, but I didn't kind of understand what that path was yet, or kind of what that was going to look like. So I did a little market research and started my company. I got a couple of clients right off the bat and kind of went from there, knowing that I was lucky that I have a very niche professional skill set. So I had job offers if it didn't pan out, but I got so addicted with the business side of it that here we are 7 years later, and I'm on my third company now, and the first one's still running, and we have 6 full-time staff, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I mean, I just dove into the learning aspect of it, because really I went from complete science geek to business owner and knew absolutely nothing. Like, when I say I knew nothing, you might think, oh, but she probably picked some things up in school or what. No, I grew up in farm town, Chatham, Ontario, where there's teachers and farmers. I had no one in my like family or environment to nourish or even see the entrepreneurial kind of spirit in me. Absolutely nothing. I had some leadership development along the way, but not in terms of business development. And I did all science courses throughout high school and university, and I couldn't tell you what a KPI or ROI or literally anything was. So I just like literally dove headfirst into every business resource I could possibly find to get my footing and learn what I needed to get it rolling, and made a lot of mistakes up front for sure. Just from pure ignorance.
Now you mentioned diving into the different business resources. What were some of the things that kind of stood out as being very helpful that you could share with us?
I mean, to this day, I still try to read at least 50 books a year. So a book a week on multiple platforms. So I usually have 3 physical books going on at a time and a couple audiobooks. When back in the day when we were allowed to travel, 2019, I was consuming like up to 5 books on audiobook while I was traveling, right? On the plane rides and car rides and all that kind of stuff. So reading for sure is like my number one go-to for resources and learning as much as I can, and being able to absorb it and apply it at my own pace in what's applicable to me. And a lot of books I'll reread at different time frames, and they'll mean different things, and I'll take new things from them. I also obviously I joined small business centers and Chamber of Commerce and went into their kind of business 101 kind of programs, and found mentors along the way and business coaches and different things, and just expanding my network. So I think the biggest thing is for people to definitely live at Indigo and support Heather's net worth. And it's important to know, you'll probably grow out of certain mentors and business coaches and things like that. I think people probably feel like their loyalties or something should stick to one person because they've done so much, but it might be in a different industry. It might have been in a different way or a different time period, if they had built their business in the 80s and 90s, that's basically a different planet than building a business now. So a lot of things might not be applicable anymore. So I've grown out of or evolved from different business mentors and coaches and things like that. But I mean, I still keep in touch with them, and it doesn't mean that their advice isn't valuable anymore to me, but it means that I'm on a different path or in a different direction and need a different resource to help support me along the way. Since you touched on reading as being such a big part of it, are there any book recommendations that you could make? I make so many. Yeah, absolutely. If you follow me on Facebook, I do book club Thursdays. So I post a book and a little review every Thursday. I've also curated a resource. I'll give you guys the link. Actually, it's a free download of my top 100 books. And I have them categorized into the 3 domains of life. So health, wealth, and love. So I can definitely send those over, but I'll let you know, I'll give you my like inside scoop on my top 5. So I have The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol is like by far like above and beyond my favorite book of all time. I've read it at least 10 times in the last 7 years, probably more. It's just a really good reminder of kind of the energetic field and how that is the most important kind of aspect of anything you're doing in your life, really, not necessarily building a business, but literally anything. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I have Relentless by Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's personal trainer, which is awesome. And I've met him. He's awesome. I have A Happy Pocket Full of Money, which is, I mean, if you guys haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I've read it twice already this year, and I plan to read it again in November before the end of this year, because I actually I love it so much. I've gotten so much out of it. And it's one of those books that you can't possibly absorb in your first pass through. Like you need to read it a couple times to let everything sink in. And then number 5 is Great by Choice by Jim Collins, who I also like. I'm a big fan of Jim Collins and his work and his kind of business series, and gives a lot of practical leadership and business scaling advice in there.
Oh yeah, I've read 3 of those so far, and I can say that the ones I've read are good. If you're going to read Relentless, just I'll give you the explicit language warning if you're going to be listening or reading that one. So if you're listening to it on Audible, just make sure there's no kids in the vehicle with you or wherever you're listening. But
I also kind of give a warning, so I'm an Aries, which I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but my element is fire. So I'm relate really closely and resonate really closely with Relentless, and anyone that has, and I was also an athlete. So I have that kind of killer instinct in me, but it's definitely not a level 1 book that it will probably, if you're I'm thinking about starting a business and that's your first book you read, you'll never pick up another business book again, probably. So, I mean, it's definitely a level 3 book. Once you feel really comfortable with yourself and you kind of know yourself really well, and you know how important your goals or your mission is or whatever, that's kind of when that book is a good reminder to ignite certain things, and then give you examples of people that, heroes essentially in our culture that are kind of thinking the same way, and gives you a little bit of permission to let your dark side take over sometimes and be relentless, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome, Tim Grover, for this amazing plug.
So before we go further in the work that you do, I have to ask, how do you balance mom life and then business life?
Ooh, good question. So I would die, I think, without my planner. I'm convinced it's not only as important as my right arm, probably a chunk of my heart would also just fall out if I didn't have my planner with me at all times. So I'm obsessive compulsive with scheduling and time management and planning. But I also had to set really hard boundaries. So I have a time blocking schedule for the week I have my kids and the week I don't have my kids. So I co-parent on a week on, week off basis. And I have a different schedule depending on if I have the kids or not. So absolutely nothing will prevent me from picking up my kids from school. So I have that boundary, and so 2:00 when I have the kids, I'm off. Nobody bugs me. I'm not answering emails. I'm not doing anything. And I also try to keep my phone in a different room when I'm with them from 3 to 8 p.m. until they're in bed, kind of thing. And my staff knows that. And I make that clear kind of in my world, and anyone that's dealing with me. My friends know that if they're calling me and I have the kids, I don't answer, those kind of things. I make sure to make really clear. So it isn't easy to always implement, and I haven't always been really good at it, but definitely the last 3 years, I've gotten really serious about setting very hard boundaries between, and it's not between work and family life, because for me, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wouldn't be as passionate, I don't think, about what I'm building if it weren't for my family mm-hmm. being involved and getting to see it and benefit from it too. So, I mean, it's just a different time. And I value my time with my kids. And especially right now when they're so young, like it's important for me to actually be there with them. Not to say I'm not 100% perfect with it, but I'm 100% going to pick them up from school, and you know what I mean? And going to do those things. So yeah, I was very intentional, I guess, about scheduling my time when I have them and I don't have them. And I send it to my staff and everyone and let them know, like, this is what it is. Like, and I don't waver from it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important. Just and being intentional about it, right? And time blocking keeps coming up. Brian's really good at that. He does it pretty much all the time. But there's been a few other conversations we've had with people, and time blocking, that is their thing, and that's what works for them. So good.
Yeah, and it sounds, I don't know, people get offended, I guess, when you say like you schedule time with your kids, or you schedule time with your mom or whatever. But I mean, you schedule a doctor's appointment, you schedule, you know what I mean? You schedule meetings. So why wouldn't you, that means it's as important as a meeting if it's in your calendar at a certain time, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. So for me, like, I know that's my dedicated time with my kids. So it will literally just be like kid day on a whatever, like Friday afternoons and the Saturday and Sunday and the afternoons that I have them, you know? So
yeah, well, we actually recently interviewed Suzanne Bratton, and so this is going to be way off topic, but she's an intimacy expert, and she even talked about scheduling intimacy because if it's important, you should be really putting aside the time for it. So there's a nice plug there for episode 31, but but yeah, right along the same lines of what you're saying, time blocking is just an important thing. If something is important, you need to make sure that you're putting aside the time for it, or it's most likely not going to happen if you have a busy lifestyle.
Exactly. Well, I'm single, so I mean, I would like to schedule date night into my calendar. Stan, throw that out there.
There you go. Plugs all around.
Throwing it out into the universe. Got plenty of afternoons. Wide open right now. Do enough work.
There you go.
Awesome. Now, we want to talk today about vision planning, and I'm sure this is something that you picked up along the way, through this journey of starting 3 businesses. So I guess let's just start there. Let's unpack the idea of vision planning first.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, if people kind of do a study, let's say, of the most successful people in the world, the most popular influencers and whatever, I guarantee that you can boil their message down to these 3 things. So knowing what you want, the 3 steps to success, I call it, knowing what you want, getting real with where you are right now. So where are you? And then number 3 is creating the plan to bridge that gap. So exactly like a life GPS, where do you want to go? Where are you? How do we get there? Is how I kind of boil down what vision planning is. And that's why I say, like, all over my platform for life and business, because people kind of, I still think, categorize them separately, but for me it's one, and I'm sure for you guys it's one entity. And I know I'm going to say 9.9 out of 10 female business owners, it's one, and whatever, any single male parents as well. But you have to really get clear on what is important to you and what you want in every area of your life. So I talked about the 3 domains. So health, physical, mental, spiritual, wealth, financial, vocational, and legacy, and then love, social relationships, and then fun, like having fun, whether that's yourself or like things that fill your soul. So my kind of process that I go through with entrepreneurs and anyone that is kind of lost is I help them kind of get clear first on what is most important to them. What are their driving forces in life? Because that's what makes you feel good, what you're going to perform the best at, and what really you're going to have the biggest impact with your life, and what you're kind of supposed to be doing with your life. We figure that out first, and then get clear on what you want, those in mind. And then the second part, which is kind of the work part, or the like mental and spiritual work part, is like getting really honest with yourself about where are you. So I've given an example before, is I realized like a couple of years ago, I did the driving forces exercise, and I wanted wealth building to be a part of it. And I realized at that time, based on my actions and based on my thoughts and my environment, that it wasn't. Like I wasn't taking the actions that I thought I wanted to be taking, like I thought I wanted to be taking to build my business financially and my own personal wealth. So I kind of re-evaluated and kind of restructured my thoughts around it and did a lot of work on mindset. And then my actions kind of followed. And now like wealth building is 3 driving forces and the actions around it. So when you kind of do an evaluation of yourself of where you're at, it doesn't mean it can't be modified or, shift your thinking around a certain thing. You 100% can do that, but you have to know actually and be honest with yourself about where you're at right now and where your thoughts are around everything. Because if you want, for example, if you want to be wealth building, but you have a lot of negative energy and negative thoughts around money or making money or rich people or whatever it is, it's not going to happen. So kind of doing that work of self-realization and seeing where you're at with everything. And then same with business. It could be as simple as, have you written down your vision for your business? You wouldn't believe how many entrepreneurs I talk to that are 3-4 years in that have never written it down. And I'm like, you guys are in a hamster wheel. Like we can't go forward if you haven't like laid down the map to like laid down the path for you to continue walking down. So a lot of things people don't have the structure, I think, to follow through and see where they're at and have that visual plan of like, where am I going?
Now, would you apply a vision plan to both your professional and personal life?
Yeah, I have multiple. Ultimately, it's the same one, you know what I mean? But I categorize it. And then for my business, for example, we have quarterly team meetings. Well, we have meetings every week, but the quarterly meeting is specifically about planning for the next quarter, seeing what we did the past quarter, and then making sure it's aligned with our 1-year targets, our 3-year targets, and our 10-year targets. So those are specifically geared towards the business. But I mean, ultimately, it's a part of my big vision plan that I have for my personal life and empire.
Now, in terms of, again, crafting that vision plan, you touched on both the driving forces exercise that you did, the mindset work that you did. For someone who's creating a vision plan, what do you recommend are those first steps just to get started?
I mean, first steps to get started definitely is to look at themselves and see what's important and most important to them right now. Like, so an easy way to kind of do that is, what are the things you can talk about with your friends for hours on end? What kind of shows are you watching? What's on your Instagram favorites? What are you saving? What's in your actual environment? So if you like looked around my room right now, you would see like luxury items, bookcases, tons of books, you know what I mean? Lots of planning things and reminders of my vision, pictures of my kids and pictures that they've made me, you know what I mean? So it'd be pretty obvious quickly, oh, education's important to Kylie. Her kids are important to her. Living a full life. Like I have pictures of California, New York, and different places, you know what I mean? So you would see that and you could create a picture pretty quickly. And then my like Louis bag and the Queen bag. So like she likes nice things. So wealth building, obviously important to her. You know what I mean? So it would be pretty evident. So you can look around your environment and like I said, your actions. So do you have automatic savings accounts, for example, and investment accounts? Is that automatically happening? Are you looking at the stock market? What are you looking at on Instagram? What kind of, like I said, all those kind of elements are the evidence of what's most important to you. And just take notice of that. So, I mean, if you, I don't know, don't like what you're seeing around or are watching kind of like shows that really don't have any meaning or impact with you or whatever, like just be aware of it and decide like if that's something you want to continue down or want to kind of shift it up a bit.
And with that, explaining it like that, it really is so basic, because I think people, when they think of, oh, what's my vision, they don't even know where to start because they complicate it. But when you break it down as to, what's in your environment, what's around you, what are you watching, who are you talking to, it's all right there.
Well,
right?
And like I said before, like nothing will stop me from picking up my kids from school. You know what I mean? Like that's an action that is not necessarily the same for every single parent. You know what I mean? Some parents will let their meetings run long or whatever. And it's not like they're not bad parents or whatever. They just have different driving forces, and likely their partner or spouse, their most important one, you usually find someone that complements yours. So one of the two will usually have family as the top priority or top driving force. And that's how you balance them out. But you'll see, like I said, by your actions, like, what is your house clean? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things in your environment that are going to tell you what is most important to you. And that's also why I break it down when you say vision planning is so complicated. That's also why I kind of break it down into like the three domains. I think 3 is a pretty simple, like I have the 3 steps to success, 3 domains, you know what I mean? Like, trying to make it very digestible for everyone. I mean, everyone knows, I think, what your health goals are. Like, do you want to be out walking or running every day? Do you have a marathon or Ironman goal? Or do you just want to like maintain and just enjoy nature, go out hiking, or lose weight, maintain weight, whatever it is? People know what they want. They just haven't taken the time to kind of create that whole picture of it.
Now, in terms of, creating that vision around what's important, once we've established that, do you have a way that, you said you have some visual elements to that. What are some of the recommendations there?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of I have a whole program, right, that kind of walks you through building out your first year of vision planning and what to include in it. But that's in actually one of my bonus downloads is the Boss Habits, is creating an inspiring environment. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys do. I see the bookcase behind you guys. I have my bookcases here too, like, and highlighting certain ones and putting different things in front of you that are going to inspire you to keep going every day, and have, whether it's like quote or affirmation or mantra reminders in front of you, or like I said, I have pictures and different representations of what's important to me and what I'm working towards. And I also kind of remind myself, I have a journal, a goal journal that I'm working towards 5,000 goals, which I don't know, like, some people say, oh my gosh, it sounds a lot. And I think some people are like, oh, well, yeah, I could probably do that. It is hard. And I'm like, I would consider myself like a master vision planner. And I'm at 600 or 700, maybe 800 of 5,000. So, I mean, that like reading, I read those over periodically. I actually have a vision binder that is just pictures that I'm looking at. And actually, it's funny because I was talking to my sales associate at Mercedes-Benz right before this call, and my car is that's in the book. So
there you go.
It's real, guys, just saying.
Yeah. So are vision boards still a thing, or it's vision binders?
No, you can do it. I mean, you can do either. I have multiple different things that I use. It's just whatever resonates with someone and what's going to be most impactful for them, right? I find the binders kind of fun. It was fun to create. And then my kids can also like look at it and, you know what I mean, and enjoy with me, and I can explain it to them. I mean, I have things on my board, and I have a more complete version in my binder. But yeah, it's whatever works for you and is most resonating with you guys.
Mm-hmm. So vision planning, it's, you say it's important to write down and all that kind of stuff. What about speaking it like into existence, right? Like, who do you share these things with?
So my kids, I do share it with. I don't want to say that I'm not supportive of sharing it with everyone, but I think it's most impactful when you're like really, really, really like emphatically clear with yourself and working in it with yourself all the time to make sure that you like feel it and reprogram it for yourself. I don't know if you guys have read any Dr. Joe Dispenza, but I'm reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself right now. And it's all kind of about specific practices to make the mind and body aligned into experience. So that's mostly what I do. I mean, I do have one friend, like one of my best friends, that him and I will like, we know exactly what each other's visions are, and we'll express that to each other all the time and talk about that. So that is our relationship. But I find it's not going to be your relationship with everyone. And I mean, if I had a partner that was super aligned with my vision, then obviously like I would be telling them every detail about it and that. But I find someone, if you're going to share your full vision with someone, and I'm not discouraging it, I just want to maybe say a cautionary statement that it's very important that they're on the same wavelength as you so that they understand it the way that you do. So that is not going to be the case with everyone in your life and everyone in your environment, because they're just not going to be at the same wavelength of you and at the same place at the same time, most likely. So for example, like some of my family members, when I share some things with them, they just think all you care about is money. But that's not true, but it's their kind of filter that they see through because they don't see the whole vision. And they also don't have businesses, so they don't understand how everything's interconnected. So I would just say, like, if you are going to share elements of your vision, like, just don't be surprised if everyone isn't as excited about it as you are. But if you have an aligned partner who's of the same like energy, frequency, and mindset and everything, absolutely, like that's fun to talk about that.
And I think, it's good that you say that, because with society, it's a very quick, like, oh, let me get it out there, right? Let me throw it out on your Instagram story or that kind of thing. But it's so true that like you could say something and be so excited about it, so pumped for what you're about to do, and like somebody rebuttals back, and next thing you know, you're doubting yourself, you're questioning why, right? So it's nice to hear that, yes, it's not for everybody to share, and having it written down and just reviewing it and making sure you're on your own path and moving forward is so important too.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is like to pay attention to yourself and be taking those aligned actions that feel good for you. You know what I mean? Because even in my business, even though the vision is shared with all my staff and everything, they still think I'm crazy when I ask them certain things to do or change things up or whatever. And then when it starts to like all come together, you know what I mean? Then they see it, but they don't see it as we're building it. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of an important thing. Like, people aren't going to understand what you're doing while you're doing it. Like, when you're building a business, for example, most entrepreneurs and business owners don't get paid for the first 3 or 4 years as an owner, even though you're investing into other employees or things. People closest to you aren't going to understand that. Like, that's kind of my situation, and just thought, like, what are you doing? Your business is obviously failing because you don't have any money, but because they don't see kind of all the pieces that are a part of it to make it come together. So even though I see all the pieces, and even if I try to explain what I'm doing or explain the intended end result, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to absorb all of it either. So as long as they trust me and kind of execute what is being asked of them, then it all kind of unfolds.
Okay, so the one thing that we haven't touched on as we're talking about all of this, and obviously the recurring theme is the businesses that you run. So we kind of touched on the first one that you launched when you went independent and launched your regulatory business. Now, what you mentioned 2 other businesses. What are your other businesses all about?
Yeah, so I am also the acting CEO of a nutraceutical ingredient company. So we research new ingredients in the lab that have potential new biotherapeutic properties. So potentially new health benefits from naturally occurring plants and substances. So we look really closely at like the individual like molecules and different things of plants that haven't been studied before to see if there's new potential for them. So that one is kind of aligned in my whole natural health theme of my my life. And then coaching with Kylie is my newest venture, my newest brand, where I'm formalizing essentially all of my training. So I've been doing mentoring for the last 5 years locally with entrepreneurs and judging pitch contests and all kinds of stuff for both the natural product industry and then the small business kind of community in KW. And now I've formalized everything I'm doing because I've kind of gotten a lot of requests for coaching and things. So I wanted to formalize actually what I've done in my package and my experience to be able to present it and make it available to kind of everyone. So I think the difference also with because I've gotten the question actually recently, like, oh, well, we're kind of confused. You're doing NaturalSci and coaching with Kylie and everything. I'm like, well, I think kind of the proof of me launching Coaching with Kylie is my NaturalSci reg consulting business. It's been alive for 7 years now, and I've got all my staff, and grew 100 or 200% last year, something crazy. And we're doing that again this year. So it's doing really well. And not only that, I've invested into myself over the last 7 years, easily close to $100,000 in different mentors. Like I mentioned, mentors and business coaches, and I've gone all over the US for masterminds, like 1% masterminds with big names. You know what I mean? Like I've learned from Annette, Ty Lopez, and Grant Cardone, and Ed Milet, and Andy Frisella, and all kinds of like big names and people. And I've actually implemented the things into my business, and I live a business owner's life every day. I think kind of what I've seen anyway, and I don't know if you guys will comment on it or not, but there's a lot of coaches out there that kind of either they've decided they want to help people, which was fantastic, but probably don't have business experience, probably aren't running their own businesses other than being solo entrepreneurs and running their own coaching business. But I mean, I have staff, I have payroll, I have, you know what I mean? I've been doing it for a long time, and managing my home life at the same time, and helping other businesses too, and seeing the impact that the things that I'm learning are having for other businesses as well, and can change in things in their mindset, kind of not overnight, but in a week or something, and like also make them feel okay that it's like, it's okay to feel anxiety and be frazzled. And you know what I mean? One of my best friends and I, like, we say, if you're not crying once a week as an entrepreneur, you're doing it wrong. You know, and I said that to one mentoring session, and there was like 50 or 60 entrepreneurs on it. And then the next day, one of them wrote to me and said, I was crying, something was going wrong. And then I remembered what you said and I started laughing. And she's like, thank you so much for like being honest about it. And I'm like, yeah, like that's my whole thing. Like I'm authentic. I think people probably see my LinkedIn photo and the fact that I'm in like professional natural health, and they maybe have a certain image of me, but then when they actually like see me in person and like I'm smiling and making jokes, they're like, oh, you're a lot different than maybe I thought you might be. And I'm real about it. Like I'll be honest about the journey, and that's, I think, what I can put into my brand and my coaching is I've actually lived through it. I've had those days where I was like curled up in my office after hours, you know what I mean, on a chair, crying and huddled up, not knowing what's going to happen. And then like completely broken through that and processed what I need to do to get onto the other side, and invested in myself and my business in order to continue building my vision and getting clearer and clearer on it.
Absolutely. Now I have kind of a weird question for you to follow up on all of that. Do you have a favorite failure that you've experienced in the last 7 years?
Oh God. You know what I'll say is I've learned some really tough lessons in finance, like really tough lessons, like missed payroll lessons. And those like had the biggest impact on my commitment to learning about finances, learning about money in every aspect. So not only did I learn like hard facts and got like Profit First and different money management books that are specifically related to business, but energy work around money, like looking at my whole thoughts and subconscious programming around money. Like I said, I grew up in a small town, single mom. We did not have a lot of money. So I didn't have that experience or that environment. So just getting really deep around literally everything in my world about money, and then reshaping it into what I wanted it to be.
So before we wrap up, I want to actually circle back to your work with teenagers and youth. So we have a preteen. When you work with, when you go into the school, maybe you haven't recently because of COVID and all that, but what are you saying to them? Because, we've all been teenagers, and let's just face it, maybe not the highest visionary time in our lives, right? So what do you say to youth just to sort of get them thinking about what their visions are, and understanding that it's most likely going to change, but just to keep them motivated?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do different talks depending on what is requested of me. So I've done leadership, I've done like sales and marketing, and then I've done like time management. And I mean, it's a tough age group, to be honest. And I honestly thought they would be more engaged. And a lot of them, when I was in the classroom, it was like a classroom of zombies. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm like bouncing around in the front of the class. You know what I mean? Like energetic and nothing. I'm getting nothing from these kids. Like trying to be funny. So you guys are laughing and smiling, making me feel good. I was getting none of that.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
The teacher was trying to help me out. And then I've also had classes where like a couple of kids, like half the room super engaged, academic kids, and then the other half is not interested. And I've kicked kids out of classes before, to be honest, because like I'm there volunteering, trying to share and provide value to them. And I don't have time for that, like if they're not going to pay attention. So I'll say that first. Like if they're completely unengaged, then they're completely unengaged. I can't really say anything to spark any interest if it's not there in the beginning. It's not one of their driving forces. It's not one of their driving forces. It's fun. But I try to like get their attention with like a picture of like a Mercedes I ran in when I was in La Jolla, you know what I mean? And say like, there's the flashiness that you can have as a life, as an entrepreneur, but also there's like a lot of skills and they have to learn, a lot of responsibility. All of them have this like magical fantasy that Shark Tank is going to give you $1 million as soon as you start a business. And I'm like, guys, that is not how it works. I think Shark Tank gave the wrong impression to our youth about what business ownership is like. But I just try to, like I said, I just try to be real with them about what kind of a day in the life for me is like, what it can be, why I'm so driven and why I'm willing to take on the responsibility and risk. And then explain to them, like, if this resonates with them, here are some resources to like for you to learn more. If it doesn't, awesome. Because like not everyone is probably meant to own their own business and be an entrepreneur. I need my staff. I need them to support me and the vision, which includes them. But you know what I mean? Like I need everyone to kind of fill their role for the vision to work. So it's not, I think it's kind of been glamorized as this, like, you have to be a solopreneur sexy thing right now. And it's not the case. Like they can do it on their own. I've also noticed recently, and I just finished up a summer company program, which was high school and a couple university students that started businesses for the summer. And I try to go on, like, touch on worthiness with them. Cause I find like I've seen this theme recently, which is a little bit scary, which I'm excited to be speaking in high schools and stuff again, because they are terrified of money and putting themselves out there and like knowing that they're worthy to do this. Like there's so much fear when I'm talking to them about their business plan and in their body language and in the language that they're using to express themselves. I'm like, guys, like you created a business, you created a product. This is amazing. You should be like super excited about it. And then after a couple of weeks, when they like get it, and when it kind of clicks in and they get really like excited about their creativity and creating and what they're doing, then you can kind of see it click in and they feel it. But it takes a while for them to kind of feel that. And that's a little bit scary for me. So I'm going to focus on that a little bit more this year, I think.
Awesome. Now I want to kind of ask one more question before we wrap up, but if you could go back, 7 years and give yourself some advice, knowing what you know now, what would you tell Kylie 7 years ago?
Yeah, I was, I feel like I'm in a really great spot right now, but that has been a maybe longer than it should have journey, especially as a business owner. And that's something that, and I've said it before when people ask, like, what would you tell yourself? Like, I would have taken that more seriously early on, I think. Instead of trying to kind of fly by the seat of my pants for a lot of it and think it's okay and whatever, just like rolling with the everyday. Like I said, I was kind of in a hamster wheel with that area of the business for a while where I didn't have a plan and wasn't moving forward and all of that. So I think that was, that would be the biggest thing I would say. Not that like my journey would be different and everything would look differently, but that's something I would encourage people to take more seriously and hopefully our kids take that more seriously now, because I know like we didn't grow up with any, or I didn't anyway, of any of that educational or serious kind of financial knowledge. So I'm going to try to get that in my kids too.
For sure. No, it's so important. So important. So you said we can find you on LinkedIn and you have a Facebook group. Where else can we find you?
I have a personal Instagram account, Kyley Paul. I mean, I'm most active on LinkedIn for sure. So Kyley Paul, and then I have Coaching with Kylie page on there as well. And then KyleyPaul.com should be up and running by the time this podcast is live. We're finalizing the final details of it right now, and I have my downloadable programs are going to be right on my website as well. So if you want to check out a few things, and then my free downloads are on Facebook and it'll up on LinkedIn too.
Well, Kylie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate it. And again, I think a lot of what you said will resonate with a lot of people and be helpful, and just really solidifying where we want to go.
Awesome. Well, I hope so. And good luck with you too and everything. And we will all pray that school stays in and the kids stay in school for the entirety of this year. But yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thank you so much. You're awesome. And yeah, we'll chat soon, hopefully.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.